Hello and welcome to Blue Pixie Cupcakes. In today's video I'm going to show you how to make these gorgeous flower cupcakes and how to get this really deep, rich, red coloured buttercream. Now these cupcakes make really lovely, unique gifts and are brilliant for Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, and are actually a lot easier to make than you probably think. So starting off with our buttercream, you'll need to use American Buttercream here because we are using Russian piping tips, and we want to make the buttercream a little stiffer than usual. So I've used my American Buttercream Recipe, and I'll put a link to that tutorial in the description box below. One batch of that should decorate 12 cupcakes. Now I substituted half the butter with shortening to get a naturally whiter colour buttercream, and I followed exactly the same steps apart from I added only about 1 tablespoon of milk just to get a thicker consistency, which is what we need for our Russian piping tips for these flowers to hold their shape well. So you'll need to split your buttercream into 3, and we're going to colour some red, some uncoloured and a small amount colour green. So to get the lovely deep red colour, we first need to colour our buttercream pink, and I'm using Americolor Electric Pink for this. Once you have a nice pink colour, we're going to add a good amount of red, and I like to use Americolor Tulip Red Gel for this as it makes a really bright red colour. So mix that in and keep adding more to get the colour you're after. So this gives us a nice bright red, but I want to deepen this a bit, so I'm going to add a small amount of Claret by Sugarflair. Mix this in and that will give us the deep red colour we're after for these flower cupcakes. The more claret colour you add, the more purpley it will get. So just to show you, this is the red buttercream with a bit more claret added to it. And although a lovely deep colour, it is too purple for what I'm after today. So I'm very happy with this colour. It does look slightly lighter and more orangey on the video than it is in person. And the photos at the start and at the end pick up the deep red colour more realistically. And the colour will also deepen and develop a bit more with time, so you could leave this for an hour or so just to see if you wanted to add some more claret, but I'm going to use this right away. I'm also going to colour a small amount of buttercream with Sugarflair Gooseberry and keep adding in small amounts until you get a lovely green colour. We now need to transfer our buttercream into our piping bags. Now you'll need 5 piping bags fitted with 5 tips if you want to go for all the designs I've used in this tutorial. And the piping tips we're using for these flowers are this Russian piping tip. It doesn't have a name, so you'll need to go by the design, and I'm going to be using the white buttercream for this tip. This is the other Russian piping tip I'm using, and I'll fill this bag with the red buttercream. Piping tip 2D, and I'm using red buttercream with this one. Tip number 1, which is a smaller round nozzle, and I'm using the white buttercream for this one. Tip 10, which is a round nozzle, and I'll use the green buttercream with this one. I've also used a couplet on this bag, so I can swap this around with tip 67, which is what we'll be using for the leaves. So we want to start off by applying a layer of white buttercream to the top of each cupcake to give something for our flowers to adhere to. And I'm using a small angled spatula for this, but a knife would work just fine. To make the first design, I'm going to pipe a rose swirl using the 2D tip on half of the cupcake. I'm then using the white buttercream Russian piping tip and gently squeezing all the way up before slowly releasing the pressure and pulling away. Going in with tip number 10, I'm filling in any gaps on the cupcake. And filling in the centre of these with the white buttercream, tip number 1. Finally, I'm using tip number 67 to create little leaves all around the flowers. For the second design, I'm going to use the 2 Russian piping tips, starting with the red in the centre, and alternating the red and the white around this. This is the first time I've used Russian piping tips, and I think I could do a much better job next time just by learning, by practice and trial and error. I think they look better when the flowers are a little taller and not so fat at the bottom, so apply an even pressure from start to finish. And just finish these off with some leaves. With the next design, I'm using the 2D tip and I'm piping 3 small rose swirls around the cupcake. I'm then going in with tip number 67 and filling in all the gaps. And piping the white into the centre of these. Using tip number 67, I'm going to pipe a few leaves around the rose swirls. The final design is a simple rose swirl using tip 2D. And I'm adding in a few leaves for a little contrast in colour. And that's our flower cupcakes complete. You can also add a few white sprinkles in if you want for some more detail and colour, but they look lovely just as they are. These are so pretty and a lot easier to make than they look, I think. Obviously you don't have to go with the red and white, although I think these colours are gorgeous, you can go with any colour combinations. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more tutorials like this one, please subscribe to my channel.